All right. Good morning. Good morning. How are you? We're very excited to see each and every one of you. My first request is to thank your neighbor for being here. So give them a handshake. Tell them thank you for being here. We're excited to see you. Great. My name is Ronald Mokasa. I will be your moderator today. I work with Enterprise Uganda, and I'm part of the work we are going to share today. I'm excited to see each and every one of the people in the room. I'm here with a couple of colleagues. I'm going to introduce them. Anita is right over there. Paul is here. Paul, please put up your hand and smile. Yes. And then Mary and Rosemary. Those are my colleagues who we will be running the session together with. So we've first of all, thank you for choosing to be here this morning. We know there was a lot of competition for which session you go for, but we believe you have a really good time as we run through a lot of what we have prepared to share. So we are here to have this conversation on really what mindset training can do to help the businesses that we support. And we'll share with you some of the lessons we have learned. We'll share with you some of the methods we have used. And we're actually hoping during this session we'll experience some of those methods that we have been using. So Enterprise Uganda is an institution based in Uganda. It's been supporting entrepreneurs for the last 25 years. We work with around 20,000 entrepreneurs every year. And really, we are very excited to have partnered with the Sea Change team, which is based out of Johns Hopkins University. Paul and Anita from there. And we have partnered to be able to see how mindset training can be helpful to an entrepreneur. And today, we're not just going to share with you the results. We are actually going to go as far as making sure we experience, to some extent, in the hour which we have also, to some extent, experience what these trainings are actually all about. And we hope that as you listen, it may be helpful for those of you who are ecosystem builders, those of you who support entrepreneurs. We hope you can pick a piece. And our specific interest is that we can be able to kind of connect and see how to spread this work out a little more. So to start off, I think for me, one of the first central ideas is I've had the opportunity to work with entrepreneurs personally for about 13 years. And every time you have something exciting to do, you meet this one person who seems like they're right at the edge to get it done, and they're just not getting it done. And there is this thing called mindset. They say that they have a mindset, which is, but what does it exactly mean? And really, one of the things which we hope we can do during this session is to kind of dissect and bring it to a point where we can be able to say that, you know what, from my experience, and I believe from many of your experiences, you have seen that actually when there is something which changes in that specific area, things get done by the entrepreneurs. Those of you who don't know where Uganda is located, Uganda is right at the center of Africa. So we have about around Congo, around Kenya, that's where Uganda is located. And our population, 70% of our population are below the age of 35. So we have a very, very young population. And for us, when we talk about entrepreneurship, it's not just seeking the opportunity, but sometimes it's the only option on the table because young people are looking for work which doesn't exist. So winning in entrepreneurship is so important to us because that may be the only door which is available to a young person. So the work which we are going to talk about really is born in that environment. And we are excited that Anita has had an opportunity to work in various countries in our region, and she'll be sharing in a moment. But we believe that that's one of the things that is important to transform, especially amongst places where sometimes the resources are not available as they should be. But this is available to an entrepreneur to be able to win. So to start us off, I'd just like you to scan that code and just run through a quick survey that we have prepared. Please go ahead and answer the questions in there. Is it working? Okay, good. Paula, that's good news. All right. I think most of us have finished. Have we finished? Great. I don't know whether we can pull up the results. So what is the importance of mindset? Great. There we go. So clearly the majority of us are saying mindset topics for entrepreneurs are very important. Possibly that's the reason why you chose this session. You totally agree with this argument. Great. Well, let's go to the next question. Still, yeah, that's about 43% of us are saying that mindset topics are important for other people in business, and this is for us in the ecosystem. They are also important for us. We also have mindset issues to actually deal with. So there is consensus there. We can go to the next question. The majority of us have tried to add a specific topic in our programs or our work with entrepreneurs. So we have actually attempted to do this in our programs. Great? We can go down to the final one. Are you currently interested in adding? So we have added, but we are equally interested in adding more in here. So that, I believe that's why we're in the room. Is there something new that we can be able to add to our programs? Now, I believe that as we run through, one thing which is clear is that in the room we have a coalition of the willing. All of us believe in this idea. However, we hope that we can be able to find something to be able to add to our cocktail that we have been offering. So at this moment, I'm going to invite Anita to just come and share with us to start off the conversation with the work which we have been doing.
Sure. Thank you, Ron. All right. Thanks, everyone, for joining us today. My name is Anita Shankar, and I'm a... Oh, can you hear me now? Okay. I'll do my best on this. My name is Anita Shankar. I'm an associate scientist at the Johns Hopkins Bloomberg School of Public Health, and I am also a researcher that has gotten myself involved in entrepreneurship. So what I'm going to present to you a little bit today is about the actual evidence, the research that we've been doing that has demonstrated to us the power of mindset training, not just for entrepreneurs, but for a whole range of individuals that are living in resource-poor settings. But actually, the more we understand this and think about this, it's actually available and important for everyone. Now, just a bit of context. I'm a health scientist. I have degrees in biology and medical anthropology and spent 20 years living and working in developing country settings, mostly working on infectious disease, maternal and child nutrition, and health. And after 20 years of doing a lot of these health behavior interventions, what I realized was that we were making people a little bit healthier in poverty. So when our family came back to the United States in 2010, I was like, there has to be a different way to do this work. Because if you look at the populations we worked with, they didn't have security, they didn't have nutrition, they didn't have a means of livelihoods. They didn't have much, but they did have the thoughts in their head. And being born in India and raised in an Indian family, I understood the role of what your environment tells you about what you're capable of doing and how far you can go. So, and most of the populations I was working with were illiterate. So it's like, well, how do we engage individuals on those conversations about themselves? And could there be a way for them to explore those in a safe space, to reframe those thoughts in a way that aligns with what they wanted to do for their life? So we started doing a bunch of pilots in the early, basically 2013 or so. And this was not related to entrepreneurship at all. But what we found was that people were starting businesses. And let me just show you an example. So we did a personal agency training. We call it personal agency training. You could call it empowerment training. You could call it mindset training. But basically, it was around going through a personal journey to understand how we think, how it's related to how we feel, and what we want to do. And also to be able to think about what we want to create for our lives and a path of mental tools to be able to get there. So even in this Congolese refugee camp, we trained women for 2 days on this material and then 1 day for the male partners. And with no business discussions at all, there was still a 25% increase in starting a new business. There was a 34% increase in income, even in the refugee camp. 60% increase in starting a new skill. And the other thing that we noticed was that if the male partner was also trained for just a day, 6 hours, that there was a tremendous amount of intra-household task sharing, that people were able to work together for kind of keeping the household going. And this was really surprising because these are really stressed populations, and they were finding hope in building their families in a strong way. This whole study was actually designed to be able to see if personal agency training could reduce gender-based violence, and in fact it did. We found a 35% reduction in non-partner violence because people were getting along better with their neighbors, and also a 30% reduction in intimate partner violence for individuals that experienced it at baseline. So this is just an example how in a non-entrepreneurial space, mindset is important. So the other thing that we had done is we thought, okay, listen, we need to be able to provide evidence to the policymakers that this is really important. And so what we did is so these randomized controlled trials become really central because right now it's our gold standard to help us understand if you have an intervention, is it actually resulting in the outcomes that you want? So we did a randomized controlled trial in Kenya with cook stove entrepreneurs. And half of them had gotten a standard business training, 4 days, and the other half got only personal agency training. And what we found is that if you got the personal agency training, we doubled the percentage of businesses that actually were still viable after 9 months compared to those who just got business training alone. So that was an important thing. Now, if you've ever had to sell clean cook stoves in an African context, it's really difficult. So here's where we found the big switch. Early on, people were kind of not selling that much, right? And so what the local NGO decided to do was they said, listen, we're going to provide clean cook stoves at a wholesale price, but you have to be willing to take the risk to do it. And that's where the big change was, because the people who got the personal agency training was like, I think I'm going to take this risk. And when they did, their sales went up. And we did this 2 times over the course of the study, resulting in a tripling of outcomes in terms of the sales. And in fact, you can see this last point when the incentive was being able to get a job at the NGO, it really pulled up sales. So this last study that I'm going to talk to you about is a collaboration we're doing with Enterprise Uganda in Uganda. And here is a large-scale randomized control trial with 800 micro and small entrepreneurs. And the intervention in this case was an adapted personal agency and business training that was adapted in collaboration with the trainers at Enterprise Uganda. And what we found was, if you got this 3-day training, we followed them for 1 year, it significantly enhanced profits and revenues 1 year after the training. Now, what was also interesting is that the impacts were larger for women than for men. Now, men also got positive improvements in profits and revenues, but the women did much better than the other women the control women who did not have access to this training. Now, in addition to that, there was higher reported use of key business strategies for all the business strategies that we surveyed. And we also had much higher rates of goal achievement because we asked them what they wanted to do at baseline, a goal that they were moving toward, and then we asked them at endline, did you reach that partially or fully? And we found a tremendous increase in the ability to actually reach the goals that they had said that they wanted to do. In addition, we also found that women had an increase of rates of self-efficacy and personal initiative. So we were very pleased with these results. Now, just to give you an idea of the difference in changes. Now, here's the advantage of doing a randomized control trial, right? Everyone is the same at the beginning. And so revenues at baseline, they're about $700, $800 in the last 30 days. But revenues at endline, it stayed the same for the untrained group, around $769. But if you had the sea change in business training, you were getting revenues of over $1,000 in the past 30 days. Again, with profits, also, they were pretty much similar at baseline, around $250. But at endline, you've got, for the untrained group, only $283 in terms of the profits, but $379 on average at endline. So in addition to having these data, you have got to do regression analysis to really get a good measure of what the actual profit changes are. And the adjusted analysis showed a 38% increase in past 30-day revenues and a 43% increase in profits. This is only 1 year after the training. Now, female entrepreneurs made even greater progress. They found a 60% increase in profits in the last 30 days compared to women in the control group. So that's an estimated impact of over $120 per month. Now, we also did an ROI. The actual cost for this training, this is a residential training, it was a little bit less than $500 per person. It's estimated to be over 364% return on investment after 2 years. So it's a low cost, incredibly effective and impactful training. So we're quite excited about this. We're working in collaboration with Ronald and his team at Enterprise Uganda to be able to build this into as part of a larger mindset learning lab, which will be continuing to understand how we can continue to get these numbers even better and higher. And we're also working to see if we can integrate this into a larger national program called the Parish Development Model, where there are 1 million Ugandans who could potentially get access to this kind of training. But we'll also do that within the research. So I am going to now pass it along to my colleague, Paul Spurzum, because in addition, we wanted you to have that basis about the evidence so you know that the impacts can be done, but now we want you to actually experience it yourself so you can see whether you can apply it in your own work. All right, Paul?
Yeah, thank you, Hava for Anita. Great. Well, so everyone in this room, it seems like, has worked on mindset in one way or another, and there's a lot of frameworks out there, right? There's growth mindset, there's all these different mindsets. So our goal is to kind of cut to the chase and allow this to be something that can be applicable for your work, to distill all these different flavors of mindset trainings into some pretty good theoretically based and practical terms. Before doing that, there's some survey research in Uganda that we didn't do, but the MasterCard Foundation did about the state of entrepreneurship. So this is a survey done last year with 1,000 entrepreneurs nationally, and they're seeing some deficits in indicators related to business linkages, registration, accessing finance, all of these things that are, at the end of the day, very behavioral. They require people taking action, saying yes to the opportunities, showing up. And a couple of statistics really demonstrate some interesting stats. 91% of entrepreneurs surveyed believe that written manuals and processes in their business are important, but only 35% have them. Similarly, 93% of entrepreneurs believe they know that financial records are important to keep, but only 63% maintain them. So there's this very conscious gap between what people know they should do and know is possible and what you actually do. And I think that's very much a human experience. All of us at the end of every day can look back and say, hey, did I use my time and energy 100% like I wanted to? Probably not. You know, it's going to be hard to make this gap zero, but this is a pretty big gap. And when you see a large gap like that, that's where we think this mindset training can really come in handy. And so a lot of programs, especially entrepreneur business training programs, they focus on opportunities. So things like resources, technical training, skilling, working on policies and laws is really important. Focusing on rights and institutions is very, very critical. But we feel like there's this piece of the puzzle that often gets overlooked as soft skills or socio-emotional skills, or it just gets kind of cast aside. And we want to bring more attention to this because opportunities answer questions like, what's available for me now, right? What's changing? What knowledge and skills do I have? But there are other questions that people normally ask themselves. Things like, can someone like me actually do this? Will my family and my neighbors accept me if I try and do this? Will it even make a difference, right? Does any of this even matter for someone like me? These are really normal human questions, and when you don't predict these, when you don't address these in your technical or resource programs, you are going to leave gaps and opportunity on the table. So Anita mentioned personal agency. This is a fairly technical, psychological term. We're not going to go too much into it. It's the belief and capacity to make decisions and take actions to influence your life and the future. So it's the belief that my decisions and actions matter. When human beings believe you can control your world, then and that you can accomplish things in your world, that's when progress occurs. And you can imagine the opposite is when you believe that none of your actions and decisions matter. How do you think that's going to lead you in your life? These sort of beliefs change a lot. And there's a lot of concepts that you may have heard in some other entrepreneurial mindset frameworks around here or outside of this network. The themes and theories that we draw from are related to self-efficacy, so that belief that I'm capable of doing new and hard things. I think there's a session right now about how self-efficacy is the new superpower going on somewhere right now. We agree. Optimism, so this field of positive psychology that when bad things happen to you, do you see them as temporary and not attributed to you as a person, or do they define you, right? So optimism versus pessimism is pretty core to this. Self-determination, this idea that I know what I want to see and achieve. Motivation theories that I think are very popular in the entrepreneurial ecosystem. And then self-regulation. So this is like emotional self-regulation and ultimately responding in ways that keep you on track, right? Are you checking that your actions are in line with your values, with your goals? A lot of us don't do that. It's really hard to do. So this is the jargon. These are the theories. We try and break out of this because teaching partners and business trainers in the field and in the business ecosystem, not everybody needs to know all of this, frankly, to impact mindset in a positive way. And we're also confident that it's teachable because neuroscience has found out that the brain changes and grows throughout our life. Old dogs can learn new tricks. Also that everyone can imagine the future. It's a very, wherever you have language, you have this imagination. So everywhere, every culture, when there's language, people are talking to themselves, they're envisioning themselves in the future. And stories really matter. Where you shift your focus can totally change your experience. And then thankfully, opportunities do exist. People are doing really good work in the ecosystem to make financing available, to make technical training available, to make market linkages available. So all of this doesn't work if there aren't opportunities, but a lot of times opportunities come without the mindset piece. So the framework that we try and focus on to distill this language, we call this sense, shift, and act. So we kind of clump a lot of our skills. There's a page in the participant packet, this second page where we sort of describe, you can see this on the page if the text is really small up here. And these are kind of clumped in terms of activities and practices that help you gain awareness. So sensing is just gaining awareness of your thoughts, emotions, and actions. That's really step one. If you're not aware of what's going on, it's very hard to change. And then trying to do this without judgment. So noticing like how you feel, how you're reacting to things without judgment. If anyone's familiar with mindfulness approaches, taking the judgment out of this process is really hard, but it's really important. So it's getting awareness of what's going on in your life and in your thoughts, and then also where you want to be in the future. A lot of people don't pause to think about where they want to be in 5 years, in 10 years. And if you don't have that really future version of yourself that you're excited to see, it's hard to stay motivated, it's hard to move forward. The other set of activities are related to shifting. And when we say shift, we mean like reframing our focus, focusing on your strengths rather than your weaknesses or your faults, noticing your potential. And there are some activities and practices that are very well evidence-based from different cognitive psychology. There's a lot of practices to get you shifting your focus in ways that help you. And lastly, ACT, right? Behavior change practices. Can we help people be more proactive and not reactive? Can we help people set goals that are more specific and measurable and more likely to act upon? And can we do it in smaller, more proximal steps that feel more achievable, that lead to progress in shorter terms and shorter time periods? So this is the sort of way that we're trying to distill the language. And these terms seem to translate well in a lot of different languages and a lot of programs. We're open to feedback and other ideas. If you're translating terms in different ways and different places, we'd love to talk about it. This is what we're kind of working on. And we do these programs always paired with technical topics. Obviously, we've done some research without business topics involved, like Anita shared. And there are some impacts of just working on this and seeing where people take it. But we typically pair it with a business training program or an employee training program or a policy. You know, we pair it with new changes in the environment. We also, in contrast to some business training programs, we seek growth not just in business, right? A lot of people are motivated to succeed in business for reasons beyond money. And helping people think about that, grow in ways that are important to them, are important. Or understand what money really means for them, what that's going to get them. And then we explore a lot of social stereotypes in our programs. We feel like that's a great way to apply some of these practices and at the same time address the really tricky social barriers that are out there and in the way. So the first activity that we include in all our programs is called this Think, Feel, Do cycle. There is a page in the packet, the next one. And we are going to go pretty quickly through these. You'll have some time to write, a little bit of time to share with the person sitting next to you. Lucky you. And don't worry if you can't read everything on the slide. We'll be able to share the slides afterwards. But the first concept here is just, are we noticing the connection between our thoughts, our emotions, and our actions, and all the different directions that it can go? So it's not just I think something, I feel something, and I do something. It might start with an action, right? If I skip breakfast, how do I feel at lunch? Right? How am I noticing these things? Is there a certain time of the week? Is there an activity at my job that I just hate doing? And every time I do it, I'm just so annoyed, right? Are we noticing this? And a lot of times it does start with our thoughts. I want to share a quick example. Imagine someone who, the situation at hand, someone who's never finished school, never received support from their family. That's kind of the fact of the situation. It would be very reasonable to think about this situation in a way that says, well, I'm not worthy of investment, right? My family didn't invest in me. I didn't finish school. I'm nobody. Okay. And if you think I'm not worthy of investment, how are you going to feel? Probably a little shameful, a little dismissive. And when you feel that way, what are you going to do? You're probably going to ignore that program offer. You're going to ignore that opportunity to learn how to become an entrepreneur, or to take that, or to explore that loan or that training program. And you'll survive another week, but you'll continue to think things like, well, I'm never going to amount to anything. You're kind of stuck in this cycle. Now, another person who's never finished school, never received support, it could also be reasonable to think, well, that makes everything I achieve even more impressive. Right? There's a lot of ways, there's 100 ways to interpret everything that happens around us. And we want to make people aware of how are you thinking about what's happening. So just bringing some, shining some light on this internal thought process, this internal dialogue that we all have. It comes with language. It's a blessing and a curse. And if you think that makes my achievements more impressive, you're going to feel more optimated, or you're going to feel more motivated and optimistic. You're going to explore that program. You're going to grow. You're going to think things like, I can grow and have a say in my future. And a lot of this starts with just how you interpret a situation that you experience. A lot of us aren't necessarily entrepreneurs, but maybe we're just struggling with our workload. This is a common thing. If you believe there's nothing you can do, you're probably just going to feel more stressed. You'll cancel all your personal plans. You'll survive another week, and you'll still feel stuck. Whereas another person who is also struggling with their workload, if you can think, hey, maybe there's a way I can do something about this, you're optimistic about it, you're going to feel motivated to maybe ask a colleague or your boss for advice. You're going to find something to share. You're not going to cancel all your plans. You might find some balance. Things can change depending on how you respond to stress, how you respond to something that is happening around you that you are going to judge. You're going to automatically judge it. We want people to notice the judgments that you're making. So in your packet, there is that a little bit of space. So I want to give you just a minute or so to write any notes. If you've noticed this think, feel, do cycle in your own life, have you noticed this? Is there any, yeah, oh, and there are some extra packets here. If, Ronald, if you could hand some out. Yeah, thank you. If anyone needs. Just think about it for yourself for a moment. Is there something that you really enjoy doing that makes you feel good? Is there something that seems to drain your energy? I don't know. Just have a think about it for a moment. Write down a few notes. I won't make you write for more than 60 seconds, I promise. All right. And since we have a couple of minutes here, why don't you go ahead and share at your table? Not everybody has to share, but if someone would like to share at your table, we'll give you about 3 minutes or so. See if you've noticed this for yourself. If you haven't noticed this at all, talk about it, think about it. You'll have about 3 minutes to share at your table while Anita comes up, and we'll move on to the next. Yeah. Go for it. Have you noticed this?
I wouldn't have said that. I used to say that because I'm going to time, I'm late. So But what I think was preparing for retirement, that's a big one. People start early. I started as a planner. I started early a couple of years ago.
Sorry to interrupt.
So I understand it. I know what to do.
But one of
My
those
thing was the
never-ending challenge.
planning
in this space of
to
makeup.
deal with sensitive companies that I can retire. And I don't feel like I need to work.
Ah,
That's
there
how
you
it
go.
is today.
For resources that fail to come.
Right now, I can
It's how
retire.
similar it is. Yeah. Very similar. Extremely similar. Because if that is how it is,
What is it gonna
then
look
just
like?
say, you know what?
My son is very good. Like, what
When I was telling him about what it takes in our case,
so I think
endless like keep on,
where
even as we're having a budget now, don't imagine tomorrow it will be there. Be imagining another one this one may disappear. And be ready for that disappearance, but open another door.
And it can go.
It can go. So when I was doing this, he said he also got a similar thing. Yeah. You put down the exhausted on resources.
Like you think
Okay,
of
just
what you-
another minute or so.
Eventually,
plan it could change things, whatever, but right now,
sources.
very comfortable. My story is kind of like,
So first of all, to share here, it's running
would encourage you to not go to my position today.
we met
And I did all these things, and I'm a master. So, and I had children.
but now you have a question.
So I was
You're having partners. Once you work, but without money.
From that, I had that other thing.
Depending on what the partner brings, you can sit.
Okay, if we can just wrap that up. I'm glad to hear that all of you are talking to each other. So that was kind of like a really quick introduction to kind of how our minds work. And as we consider kind of the next step on this, it's really helping us understand about our goals. Because oftentimes we go through life and we don't necessarily have specific goals that we want, or the goals that we have or our visions are very vague. I want to be happy, I want to be rich, I want to live in a nice place, I want to have the perfect partner, etc. So what we notice is that if we can get a little bit more clarity on exactly what our visions are, that actually helps direct the next actions that we're going to take in our life. So what makes a vision powerful and effective? A lot of it is really being connected to the values that are important to us. And while we won't go through a values exercise now, part of our activities are actually helping us become clear about what is important to us, including our values. A powerful vision is kind of like if you're a plant and growing, right? It's like the sun. It's like what draws you future to it. You know, it's the future that you're going to move toward and grow. So it also helps you make decisions. Is if I take this opportunity, is that going to help me move toward my value-driven vision? In addition, we want to be thinking about not only the actions that we're going to take, but also who we are. So it's not just our to-do list, but it's our to-be list. Right? What kind of person do I want to be? How do I want to feel on a regular basis? And really understanding how we can include that within the vision of our lives. So the idea is to create a practice, a daily practice of thinking and being in line with the values that are important to us. The clearer you are about a vision, the easier it is that you can take actions toward that. And now I want to also say, just because you create a vision, it doesn't mean that if you don't reach that vision, you fail. It's really a guidepost that moves you forward. You can always change your vision. And most often, that actually happens. So you can kind of have a vision, but the route to that vision may not be as you planned. But that just having that clarity in your mind can help your decision making. So we also know that we just don't have one vision, right? Our lives are full. We often show this a diagram called a vision web, so that it helps you understand what your visions are, not only for your work, your health, but your family, your relationships, your education, your spirituality, all those different things in your life that make you whole. So having visions in these areas of your life are also important. So now what I'd like you to do is take just 2 minutes, and I want you to think about a positive vision for your future and accomplishments. It can be in any area of your life. It could be in your business, in your work, in your family. But I want you to write down in your participant packet, what does it look like and feel like? And think about on the path to this larger vision, what are the various different obstacles and challenges that you may have to overcome? So keep looking, but it has to be a powerful enough vision so it gets you really excited. Coming back to the think, feel, do cycle, if you feel excited and motivated, it's more likely that you're going to take action. All right, so 2 minutes. All right, just another minute. All right, if you can wrap up. Now, after you've had an opportunity to write down your vision, while you could be quite motivated and excited about this vision, probably also at the same time your brain was telling you all the ways that you're never going to be able to reach your vision. So I want to describe one of the really foundational pieces around this process. It's called limiting beliefs. And limiting beliefs, we'll go into it a little bit more in more detail. These are the things that hold you back from moving toward the goals that are important to you. And we won't just leave you at the limiting belief stage. We're going to help you think about how to reframe that belief in ways that are going to be able to move you past that limiting belief and move you forward. So what are limiting beliefs? Limiting beliefs are a belief about ourselves that make us doubt what we can do or what we can be. It makes us hesitate and ultimately can hold us back from achieving what we want. And what do limiting beliefs look like? They can come in the form of excuses, negative thoughts, worries, justifications, past failures about ourselves personally, right? I can't do this. I'm not smart enough. I'm too old. I'm too young. I'm not good enough. I don't have the right look, whatever. And there are many different types of limiting beliefs. The most prominent limiting beliefs globally that we found is this sense of hopelessness. It doesn't matter what I do, nothing is going to work. Or helplessness. It's like, why does this always happen to me? Why do I have this bad luck? And something that we find globally for women particularly is I don't really deserve to succeed. You know, it's not my job, it's really the men's job, so I don't really need to succeed, it's okay. So the other thing that I want to make sure that you understand, there are limiting beliefs, and those are the conversations that we have about ourselves personally. But there are also real limitations. We know that there are only 24 hours in a day. That's true, that's not going to change, right? But there are some limitations that we can't change, but then the beliefs about ourselves are things that we can change. There is no time in my day to work on my personal goal. If I say that to myself, is that 100% true? And it's the same thing, it's like if we tell ourselves, well, look, I'm poor, I have no money in the bank. Is that true? Yes, that is true. Does it mean I will always be poor? That's where the shift can happen. And that's what can change. So now I want you to go back to your vision and think carefully, did you find negative thoughts or fears or doubts that came up when you were thinking about, oh yeah, what page is that? Page 9. You can start writing down any about your limiting beliefs here in terms of the negative thoughts. Yeah, hold on. Yeah, any area that you feel stuck or challenged. So page, 9. So just take a minute or two to be able to identify a limiting belief, and you'll have about 2 minutes for this. All right, one more minute. And as you're checking this, just make sure that this is a limiting belief about you, not about somebody else needing to change. And think about, is this really 100% correct or not? Oh, sorry. So now that you have your limiting belief, now here's where the work happens. It's around creating a reframe to replace this limiting belief into another belief that is taking you, it's about your positive potential. And so here it becomes really important that you're able to believe this new reframe. Now, a good reframe is something that you definitely believe, because your brain's pretty smart. If you just tell yourself, oh, I'm smart enough, I'm good enough, everyone's going to like me, but you don't believe that. You're just repeating these things. So you want to come up with a reframe that you actually believe. And it shouldn't be the opposite of a limiting belief. Because if you just say the opposite again, you're not going to truly believe it. You have that limiting belief for a reason. Either someone's told you that you're not good enough, or you have failed different exams and you haven't been able to overcome that. You just have just crippling doubt about yourself that has always kind of stayed in your mind, so that there's lots of reasons why you may have a limiting belief. So you really have to figure out what are those positive aspects about yourself, or a different way of thinking that you could truly believe. It should be clear and specific. The more clear and specific you are about this reframe, the stronger it is for you to be able to actually use it. And the best way you can check about your reframe is that when you say it, you feel good about yourself. So on the step 3, please think about an important reframe that you can be using for yourself based on that limiting belief. And sometimes you can't find a good reframe for that limiting belief, so just put that limiting belief aside and think about your positive qualities that you want to move forward on. Now, remember that your limiting belief is about your doubts and your potential and your ability. Like, I can't start now, it's just too late. But a reframe is another belief that you have about your positive potential. I've been successful when trying some new things. And while we're doing this exercise really, really quickly, this does take time and practice. So what I'd like you to do is take 2 minutes now and write in your journal in your response to a limiting belief. What do I know about myself that helps me toward my vision? And what are the relevant qualities or experiences that I have? So you can create a reframe for that limiting belief. Go ahead. Okay, 1 more minute. I know there's a lot of competing activities, that's fine. That's all right. Now, there is on page 10 of your handbook examples of different limiting beliefs and reframes, so that you'd be able to review that. And after you've come up with your reframe, what I'd like you to do now is to talk amongst yourselves on your tables to see, how was this process? Were you able to understand it? Did it make sense? Do you think you can use it? What are the challenges you faced? Yeah, so after you finished your reframe, if you could just discuss with each other. And we do have members of our team at each of the different tables to help kind of facilitate that conversation. Go around a little bit. Hey, folks. How are you finding it?
I always start with that topic because it's
ways to incorporate that into the training.
What is something is
It's good.
should be live,
Yeah.
and as usual, you find that is
I've been through a lot of things, so learning. But the people that we train may not have that same
yeah, we feel.
for helping us think entrepreneurial. I have a training session.
At that time, yes, but then even that means that
That mindset for the 8 weeks is power.
now what is
It gets people to think like entrepreneurs because they think they know what it is, and they really don't. So it's a shift in thinking.
yeah,
It's entrepreneurial.
correct, yes, yes.
Gary had a class yesterday. Yes. Who owns the outline?
Yes.
And it's good that the book is actually good for the project because it helps them see themselves.
Thank you so much.
Yes. And it's a movie too. You know that?
Yeah.
The movie is called But One's Colored. Yes. And it's based on the same thing.
Okay.
But that is very powerful.
It's very important, for example, for startups, but also for SME entrepreneurs like me. I very value taking action. It's not a problem. But sometimes
Yes. And that's what I was looking for, things that I can add to that program. Because right
the
now,
mindset, thinking about or you have the entrepreneurs or no,
and my
I will
background,
tackle it.
whoever
So I know sometimes I am
but
Government
procrastinating.
and other parties.
like something like this exercise is powerful. Get out of there. Thought I didn't so they show them back. Yes.
That's what's holding them back. So it's hard.
Want to go to the village and say it has been done. Done. And that's that these are standing up and standing up.
I think we're going to move on to the next section, I think. Oh, go ahead. Go ahead, finish.
And sometimes you don't even accomplish them because
All right. I hope you all had a chance to be able to talk amongst the group. Again, we're going through this so quickly. I'm going to pass this along to now Paul because some of the things that affect how we think about ourselves are our social norms. Paul, take it away.
Great. So this is obviously a very condensed version of our workshops. We're putting more in the packet and talking about things, hopefully as like an introduction to spark your interest, get a little bit of a taste. One thing that we and a lot of social psychology research focuses on the impact of stereotypes on performance, and we find that this is a really I mean, how many people have heard, even in like the Entrepreneurial Leadership Institute and other programs, people acknowledge that social norms have a really big impact, you know, on the mindset, on what people, you know, decide to do and feel like they can do. And I want to just start at your table, just a little bit of a prompt to talk as a group for a little bit. We want you to notice some stereotypes. So, like, have you noticed that, like, based on who you are, you know, what, like, however you want to identify yourself and your different qualities, what team you follow, whatever it is, do you have a pressure to fit certain expectations? Like, do you feel a pressure based on, you know, who you are and social stereotypes? And how do those expectations affect, you know, how you think or you feel or what you do in different situations? So just a few minutes share. Are there any like stereotypes, pressures you feel, you know, based on who you are? So yeah, just 2-3 minutes. Just notice this. You know, we're not judging it, how we feel. It's not good or bad how we feel or this pressure that we feel or not. Just wanting to notice, sense this a little bit at your table. Go for it.
Should you fail? I- Yes. Distributing cash. Just the all the villagers are and everybody is looking.
With fresh ideas. Not, but the limiting side of it, administration and industry are so different that they are. We must go for the
And then they can say, if you go today, this is possible. 3 years, wait. It should have been a magical one. It should have just been, yeah, that's tomorrow you are going to be one. It took 3 years. And even during the 3 years, building, there was still a mystery. Even the one who was a leader, when the testimonies came, that man, I don't know him, leave me alone. That is how we have.
Just one more minute.
Yes. Small. Give me only 40 a year.
See, you said it. Wrong take. Well, we would love to hear your input. But we would like to hear your input and like maybe what are some of the biases or stereotypes that you experience.
Why you are trying to ask that? Have some.
All right.
That's
We are going to continue a little bit. Thanks for indulging the stereotypes for a moment. um, so I want to share a few that are very common. You know, like stereotypes will vary based on your region, where you are, the history of a place, the history of culture, so many things. It can be based on all sorts of identities, right? Whether, you know, it's sexual orientation to gender to the sports teams that you follow, to your state, your county, your city. I mean, okay, we're not going to get into identity politics here, but you understand where it comes from, right? Like, we're very social creatures. We normally group ourselves. They come with stereotypes. Again, the blessing and the curse of language and the human experience. But what I do want to highlight is just a little bit about how stereotypes are driven from the outside. So this is kind of like what society kind of tells you, right? The collective external idea, right? From media, from your education, from your other family members. Whereas biases are kind of what happens when it comes inside your mind. So you're hearing things in society, and then how does that manifest in your own thinking, right, as a result of this? And so just take some really basic gender examples. Let me indulge. These seem to be common in a lot of cultures and places. We can argue about it at the break. But, the idea that women are caretakers and boys are tough, right? If that is what society and media and movies and your family are telling you, it leads to thoughts in our mind. Very normal to think then that a woman who isn't a caretaker isn't a real woman, right? Or if you don't act tough, you're not man enough, right? So it's gone from this external pressure to now this is something that's happening in your mind, something that you're thinking. And these biases, these ideas, can really easily turn into limiting beliefs, right? We were just thinking about, okay, what thoughts in our mind come up that seem to limit us, that aren't necessarily true. So for example, if I'm now thinking in my mind a woman who isn't a caretaker isn't a real woman, then it could be very normal to think I can't pursue a career because I need to be a mother, right? If I mess up this caretaking thing, then I won't be a real woman, I'll be shamed, etc. Or if there's this sort of stereotype in society, if you see all the men or the politicians or the business leaders, you could very easily think, well, they must be smarter, more confident, more natural leaders. That could lead to limiting beliefs like, I shouldn't start my business. How could I compete with the men in this sector, right? There's very few women in this sector. How could I do it? And then similarly, a strong man shouldn't show too much affection to their children. That's like a bias that could come out in some cultures. That might lead to a limiting belief that says, well, I could never leave work early to celebrate my child's birthday or take them to a doctor appointment or support their sports team or whatever it is, right? These can form limiting beliefs that get in the way of what we really want to do, of what we value for ourselves and our situation. And these are very sensitive conversations in a lot of cultures. We come from a background of doing like gender equity training and gender equity work. And I think we've all kind of heard the backlash when this goes wrong, right? When you only focus on girls and then boys understandably feel left out of the conversation and get defensive around it. When people don't feel heard and seen in this process, it can really easily backfire. And one thing that seems to help in our program to help people talk about these very sensitive topics is we don't talk about how norms and stereotypes need to change overnight, right? Whether how people decide to act in their home, in their relationships, is neither good nor bad. Okay, these things have come from history, they've changed over time, we believe they can change over time, but we're not saying they're all harmful or need to be changed, necessarily, right? And it definitely should not happen immediately. We're not saying go home and change everything about your relationship or the way you want to live your life. What we do think is really helpful in these conversations is to begin and end with what matters most. Talk about a vision, right? Think about what you really want for your life, for your business, start there. And if you're noticing that some of these social pressures, some of these dynamics are getting in the way of you being able to pursue that business, then it's probably time to question this stereotype, this social pressure. And that's through conversations like this, through very delicate, careful, like just touching a couple key points when you do these activities, you can lead to outcomes like Anita was showing earlier, where people who go through this program end up sharing tasks in their household more. In like very gendered roles in the household, when you go through something like this, like women feel more confident to talk to their men about, hey, if you could cook on these nights, I can do more for my business when it matters. And so it's these delicate conversations. Our activities are pretty well designed. We've gone through we know all the pitfalls, so you don't have to fall into them. But these are some of the ways that that lead to those norms change in ways that make sense to people, that are based on what you want. If it's not in the way, you don't need to focus all your energy on trying to change it. But if there's something in the way, that's when it's a great time to question it, to see if you and your circumstance with your people can adjust it, and you can move beyond it and not let the stereotype be in the way of you. So we're going to start to wrap up. We do have some time for questions. The guy said we can go a few minutes over as well. What time is it? It's 10:33. And this goes until 11, technically? Is that right? That was on your schedules too? Okay, cool. Great. So I'm going to kind of wrap this up because I want to have time for questions. I want to hear from Ronald and Charles and the Enterprise Uganda team about what they're doing in the ecosystem in Uganda. But just to wrap up on the sea change methods, there is that page in the start of the handbook with the sort of sense, shift, act description. There's another page that shows some of the key concepts that we try and sneak into business training programs. Many of them might have some pieces of this mindset work. Some pieces might be new. So we just try and highlight some of the key concepts, the order that seems to be effective to explore these concepts. And one of my biggest pieces of advice is focus on the opportunity action gaps. So a lot of success if you're trying to advocate for more time or funding to add mindset topics into a program. If you're an ecosystem builder and you need to justify this, try and focus on the opportunity gaps. So where are you offering technical training or loans or financing and people aren't taking it to the expect that you hope they will, right? So focus on these gaps that are related to behavior, they're related to people deciding and taking action. And when there's gaps in what you think should be happening and what's not happening, that's a great place to start conversations about mindset or justifying the addition of these programs. And then, if possible, simplify the skills. There's so many jargon. There's so many programs and special terms and frameworks to address these things. And if it's helpful for you, try and simplify the language. You're just helping people sense, shift their focus, and ultimately act. Right? The bottom line metric is the behavior, and sometimes that's really helpful as well. And I'm sure you'll see in other mindset programs that they're using components of this. We're very agnostic to we know there's going to need to be 500 flavors of mindset programs, all being successful in different parts of the world to see the change we want for the ecosystem. But maybe some of this simplified language helps you notice it or introduce it where you work. And consider it for other job seekers and employees and market relationships. We're really interested in seeing how to get these activities and conversations in the water. So yes, training for entrepreneurs is great, but are we going to reach 100% of entrepreneurs with a 2-day training? No, it's not possible for people. It's probably too expensive to scale to everyone in the ecosystem. So are there some market relationships, right? Some buyer or B2B relationships or wholesaler, supplier relationships where some of these interactions that happen naturally, you could try and embed some of these conversations, some of this awareness, some short prompts that help people be a little bit more proactive to not let their minds get in the way of good business ideas, good business decisions, taking market opportunities when they're there. It doesn't have to be just, classroom entrepreneurship training. Maybe there's some ways in the field to do this too. So we're trying to think creatively. We're trying to simplify the language. These are some things that we hope and think that the ecosystem can be doing. So with that, I'm going to hand it back to Ronald. And thank you.
All right. Thank you, Paul. Let's give him another hand clap. Great. I think we're going to have an opportunity. We have a few minutes to have a couple of questions, Q&A. Before we do, I'm going to just invite Charles, who leads the team at Enterprise Uganda. Charles Ochichi, he leads the team at Enterprise Uganda. But just want him briefly just have a quick chat on this idea of stories that this is happening, or the people who we are seeing. So, Mr. Chichi, please come ahead and just say and share with us quickly, and then we'll get into our Q&A.
All right. Thank you so much, Sea Change team, Paul and Anita. Hello. Enterprise Uganda has been doing mindset entrepreneurship training for almost a quarter of a century now. During that period, we have touched the lives of no less than 220,000 Ugandans. And some of them have moved on from people who hardly could make $100 a week to now people who can generate in a year no less than $2 million in 12 months, starting by just dealing with their mindsets and following the same message that you've been hearing here. Let people that you bring into your training programs have a sense of what it takes to go into the business arena. Once they have gotten the sense of what it takes, you need to shift them from that mindset of saying, I think I can't move. Then you tell them that you can move, you can shift. And to make them shift and act, you then give them the basic principles on what they need to do to achieve exactly that action opportunity that you have pushed them into. So as an institution, we believed in painting the picture of the private sector as one of our bases for driving people effectively into the private sector. What is the arena of private sector? Because when you get a poor person and you tell them, go and run an enterprise, go and run a school, go and run a factory on their own, or whatever it is, they have got a lot of mindset limitations that they will cite. I have no resources. I have no education. I have no contacts. My family is poor. And they have lived with these limiting limitations for a long time. How can a person of such a nature be able to scale and make a mark in the private sector? These limitations are real. So normally we start by saying, in the private sector, there are two laws you must fulfill for you to go there and remain there. And once they know what these laws are, they now know whatever they do to me, if I don't fulfill those two laws, I will never enter the private sector and win. The first law of private sector is sell a solution that will make a customer happy, and a customer will come back again to you tomorrow. Because what they consumed yesterday, they were happy with it. That's law number one. No matter whom you are pushed into business, if you don't tell them that law number one, and they go there expecting people to just come and buy your tea, buy whatever you are selling without their satisfaction, they will not come again just because you are an orphan. Never. But the second law of private sector is, even when you have gone into that space and you are selling what customers are buying and they are happy with, be ready to compete tomorrow with another person who is coming to take that customer. Yesterday, everybody was coming to your restaurant. They were so happy. 2 months later, a bigger player has come in your neighborhood and has put a restaurant right next to you. Will you now say, oh dear, I think it's time to give up? Be ready to compete with anybody who comes into your space and who comes for your customers, who comes for your workers, who comes for your resources. Once you have known that that's the picture of the private sector, we now tell people that there are two limitations in their own mindsets that stop them from going into wealth. And the first one is a limitation of excuses. I don't have enough resources. True, but you can start a business for which your resources are adequate. All of us here, when we came to Indianapolis, there was a whole range of hotels on offer. But you looked at your pocket and went for that particular range where you could fit. Bypassing a very big hotel with all the visibility and going to the other one behind the other side. The same thing happens when it comes to entrepreneurship. So the limitation of talking about resources and what have you, forget about it. Start with what you have. Serve the customer who is within your own ability to consume what you want. And then as you build on these resources, you can then go to other customers and begin to build a hotel which is star rated, 1 star, 2 star, 3 star, and what have you. So those limitations, remove them. But there's another limitation in the mindset that removes people's
ability to build wealth that we teach in our entrepreneurship program, which is the limitation of early satisfaction. You never used to have a hotel. You started with a simple lodge, no star rating. It has worked out so well. You have got 30 rooms and they're all occupied all the time. You begin to settle down and just say, I think I have arrived. No more need for new goals. No more need for anything. I keep on talking about my past and what I've been able to achieve. The moment you stop setting goals, your vision is gone. So we teach them that once you have gotten into the entrepreneurship space, the next thing is goal setting non-stop. And goal setting non-stop also means that you must continue learning non-stop. And I want to close this kind of approach with one example that we are so proud of as a country. There was a young man who came to our training when he was at the age of 28 years. He had been in the internally displaced persons camp in the country because of war. So when the war ended, we went and trained the community from that area. This young man quickly discovered that actually they had a lot of land with a low water table areas where they could tap into fish farming. And this young man had been working in a Chinese fish pond. He knew how to do fish farming, but he thought he had no resources until he came for our training. After our training, he went away and started digging 5 by 10 meter fish pond for 3 weeks. Using the clay that he removed from there, he burnt that clay to make building blocks for construction. After selling those building blocks, he got capital to get fingerlings to put fish in the water. Today, 9 years later, this young man is selling no less than 350,000 fish, each weighing an average of 1.5 kilograms every 8 months. That's an average of about $2.2 million every 8 months. Today, this young man who started with his own effort, he has built residential houses of 3 bedrooms in one of the cities in Uganda, 4 of them, no loans. Today, this young man has been able to build a farmland measuring 120 acres of land. And he's also involved in the growing and the selling of fresh cut flowers in Uganda. There is a power in getting a great entrepreneurship mindset training content that makes people to sense where they are, to shift, and to take action in a sustainable manner. He is no longer a person who is saying about being a child who missed education, a child who lost parents. He is now talking of how to scale his business and continue to sell overseas. I want to leave it there and just say, Enterprise Uganda, we're here to really enjoy this game because it's one of the things that we can use to create equality across the globe. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chichi. Let's give him another hand clap. Great. I think we still have just about 7 minutes. I just wanted to quickly give an opportunity to anyone who has a question, a comment. Yes, I think we have one here.
Yeah, thank you so much, Ronald. My name is Ronald Trabe. I'm from Uganda, but currently in the US. I've just finished a master's program at the University of Notre Dame. So when Anita was presenting, I noticed she mentioned how after sea change training, women increased income, or call it profits or revenue, more than men. And I'm curious to understand exactly why, in particular, women. Is it because of discipline or anything? Maybe if you can just deeply explain that. Thank you.
Anita, let's take just a round of questions, then we'll answer them. Thank you so much, Ronald. Yes, there's another hand over there.
Another question for Anita. So when you were showing the slide that said about, oh, no, I'm sorry. When you were showing the slide that said that people knew that they needed financials, but they didn't do them, my question was, is it because they didn't know how to do them, or where the process, or more or less about their knowledge than just their ability to be able to get it done?
All right, thank you. Can take, don't know whether there is another. All right. Anita, please go ahead.
Right. So this is a very interesting process.
Anita, you come here. You'll have to avoid the speaker.
So it's
You can use it, yeah, but
I
not
can use
record.
it. Okay. So one of the things that we recognize, not just in Uganda but globally, this idea of self-reflection, the willingness to ask yourself these kinds of questions. We found in general, women are more likely to try to engage in that experience compared to men. I think being able to, and that part of that could be that they have just a natural desire to be, kind of be self-reflective, or they're willing, they kind of recognize and feel some of the oppressions maybe more than men. It's hard to know. But one of the things that we recognize is, so that's one thing. But the other thing is, women are affected by limiting beliefs actually more than men are. And so if you can unlock that for women, they just soar, right? But there are many women who let themselves live in those limiting beliefs. And I think that's probably the primary reason for the difference. Because men are definitely improving. And, if they take it on, their incomes really soar tremendously. But I believe it's part of it, it's the willingness to do these kind of exercises, but also the gap between, living in those limiting beliefs and not is really much larger for women. But thank you. Very good question.
Yeah, one other thing, when we say women, had higher percentage gains in income, they started much lower. So they kind of had more to gain to begin with. So I don't think they were surpassing men in our sample, but they were catching up faster. So it's not like women and men were earning the same and women started earning a ton more than men. No, women were earning like 50% less at baseline, and so now they're just catching up faster as a result. It's maybe like a sort of a more to gain kind of explanation too. And then that Uganda survey, I don't know what the explanation is. I really don't. That was a national survey. I just think it's a very noteworthy gap. And a lot of people in the ecosystem will argue that some of these financial and accounting services are known to people. Like, it's not like they don't see other companies keeping records, or that the whole idea of record keeping is foreign. So yeah, they didn't ask the question, do you know how to do this within it? But there is that sort of common understanding that, hey, people do this. And when we did our study and talked with entrepreneurs in like follow-up interviews and in some presentations with them, they talked about record keeping, and some of the things that were keeping them from doing it wasn't that they didn't know how. They just thought, I'm too small to keep records. I thought that was just for bigger businesses, right? So just like small misconceptions around it can lead to that gap too, anecdotally.
Yeah, and I just want to add on that. When we did this work in Kenya, we compared the personal agency training with actual business training. So the people got the business training, they just didn't do it. And so it's kind of like connecting the dots, and if you don't know how to do it, but it's important, you actually do it. So that's our sense.
Super. I think I don't know whether we have time for there's just one quick comment there, and then we can wrap up.
It's not a question, it's just a comment. My name is Mahamadi. I'm from Burkina Faso. Just say that I would like to thank you for this interesting and informative workshop. In Burkina Faso, I do have an entrepreneurship school And I'm looking forward to connect with you in order to bring this training in Burkina Faso to help entrepreneurs enhance their performance and achievement. Thank you very much.
Lovely. And that was exactly my final remark. We really want to see how to connect so that this can spread out. Mohammed, I think that's what we're here to do. We are hoping that we can engage and we'll be around to do that, to be able to get this work out. Paul, our contacts, I think on the first page, Paul, Anita, myself, and our colleagues, a couple of other colleagues, please do reach out to us so that we can be able to connect. We're also looking for partners to do more work on mindset research. We are looking to establish a mindset learning hub in Africa, in Uganda. And we hope that if you're here and you're interested in that kind of work, we would be very excited to see whether we can have conversations on the same. And if you need this to come to your country, the beauty is that the content is open source, so that means that it's available for use. And Paul and Anita are very excited about just being able to get the word out. If you are in the African continent, we can support more directly, and we are looking forward to having more collaborations to get that done. A big thank you, and I'll close the way I began. Please shake the hand of your neighbor and tell them thank you for being here, and ask them, what have you taken away? What have you taken away? Thank you so much for your time. It's been an honor having you here.